You thought your softness would save you, but softness, in the wild, is not mercy, it's meat. She smiled when you were gentle. She nodded when you were patient, but her eyes, her real eyes, were scanning for teeth, not warmth, not virtue, teeth, because nature never asked her to find a kind man. It demanded she find a survivor, a sovereign, a shadow with hands calloused by restraint, not begging. You mistook her hunger for grace. You believed she wanted peace, but peace is only beautiful to those who've already won. You offered affection like a lamb laying its throat at the altar and called it love, but she saw sacrifice. She smelled blood and walked away, not because you weren't good, but because you were good for nothing. She doesn't despise your kindness. She despises that it cost you your power. You thought she knew you, didn't you? That her intuition was divine, a sacred feminine force that felt your pain, saw your heart, and resonated with the nobility of your kindness. You thought women had access to a spiritual radar, a higher sensitivity wired for truth. But what you call female intuition is not the voice of the cosmos. It is a weapon, ancient, sharpened, and silent. It is not sacred, it is survival. And it does not see you for what you are. It calculates what you're worth. It registers subtle shifts in status, posture, hesitation, dominance. It notices how the tribe reacts to you. It smells your fear. It hears the tremor in your, I'll protect you, and the doubt behind your, I've got this. It's not intuition, it's strategy. Nature taught her long ago if she misjudges a man, she pays in blood. A single mistake and she's tethered to weakness, to a male who can't protect, can't provide, can't dominate. So what appears to you as mystic perception is, in truth, a lifelong refinement of one cold skill detecting power, or its absence. You thought she'd admire your vulnerability. You thought if you just let her see your wounds, she'd cradle your soul. But when a man shows weakness without the frame of power, it's not endearing, it's repulsive. Because to the feminine psyche, weakness isn't just unattractive, it's dangerous. It means exposure. It means she's unguarded in a world that punishes mistakes. So while you think you're deepening intimacy, she's measuring threat. She smiles while calculating. She touches your shoulder while re-evaluating. The moment she feels you've collapsed into her arms instead of standing behind them, you're no longer a man. You're a child. And the mother in her may pity you, but the woman in her can never want you again. You call it betrayal. You say, she changed. You say, she used me, but you were never hers to use. You were on trial the moment you met. Not for your soul, not for your dreams, for your value. And while you daydreamed about being chosen for your kindness, she was scanning for one thing: survival advantage. If that sounds cold to you, it's because you've never met life face to face. Because real-life nature does not reward kindness. It rewards fitness. It rewards control. It rewards the predator who knows when to sheath his claws and when to tear flesh. And what you mistook for feminine divinity was the oldest instinct in the world looking you up and down like prey. She doesn't despise your kindness because it's wrong. She despises it because it was offered in place of strength, because you thought your emotions were your power when in truth, they were your leash. You handed them to her like she was your savior, but she didn't come to save you. She came to select you. And in that moment of sacred selection, what you showed was a boy trembling, noble, harmless. And that is not what women love. That is not what women trust. That is not what they're wired to follow. Because when intuition is not sacred, when it is survival, love becomes a wager, and you were the one who blinked first. You believed love meant giving everything, that to love purely, you had to open your chest, expose your ribs, and hand her the knife. You thought your willingness to surrender would inspire her to do the same. You imagined a contract of mutual vulnerability, a sacred pact between souls. But there is no such contract, not in nature, not in the flesh. Love is not mutual surrender. It is mutual leverage, a game of power held in tension, a silent standoff between needs, resources, and desire. What you mistake for intimacy is often just negotiation. You give her emotional devotion. She gives you access. You provide security. She provides beauty. You offer commitment. She offers legacy. Love may feel sacred, but its structure is transactional, and those who forget that are eaten alive by it. You handed her your devotion as proof. You thought that if you showed how selfless you could be, she'd recognize your value. But devotion without demand is weakness. It's charity. And love does not thrive on charity. It suffocates in it. Because when one side surrenders completely, the other does not reciprocate. They ascend. And she will ascend above you. Not because she's cruel, but because you abdicated your position. You gave her control over the frame. And a woman does not want to lead a man she loves. She wants to submit to a man she respects. A man who holds the boundary. A man who commands not through threats, but through unshakable standards. You believed that love was about melting into each other. That, to be one, was the goal. But that illusion was sold to you by poets and priests, not by the laws of nature. In nature, two beings merge only when the outcome is stronger than the sum. Otherwise, one dominates, or both disintegrate. And in this modern ritual of courtship, what appears to be romance is really a testing ground. Every I miss you is weighed. Every pause in your speech is measured. Every hesitation, every over-apology, every unnecessary act of self-erasure chips away at the frame. You think she's ignoring those details, but she's not. Her subconscious is calculating. Constantly, is this a man who bends or a man who breaks? Love is not a spiritual escape. It is not a home for your unresolved wounds. It is a mirror that reflects your strength or reveals your insufficiency. And when you show up with your hands open and your spine bowed, she feels it. She feels the burden of your need, the weight of your want. And no matter how much she pities you, she will never crave you. Because attraction is not built on guilt or sympathy. It's built on tension, on polarity, on the fire that exists between two forces that do not dissolve into each other, but challenge one another. And if you fold, if you give yourself without cost, the fire goes out. And all she sees is ashes. You believed love was about peace, but the truth is brutal. Love is war disguised as devotion, a cold game wrapped in warm language. She may say, I want a kind man, but what she means is, I want a man whose kindness costs him nothing. She wants power restrained, not replaced, strength under control, not absent. So when you offered her everything, your emotions, your time, your future without terms, without edge, without demand, you became disposable. You were no longer a man, you were an offering. And in love, offerings are accepted, not worshipped. There comes a moment you cannot unlive. A split second of stillness where something inside you dies and something colder wakes up. It's the moment you see her eyes glaze over while you're speaking from the heart. The moment she starts pulling away right after you gave her more than you ever gave yourself. The moment you realize love did not make you stronger, it made you smaller. And in that silence, in that collapsing of the illusion you built with trembling hands, you meet a truth that does not care whether you're ready. And that truth is simple: your sincerity does not matter. Your suffering does not matter. What matters is who she becomes in your presence. And if she doesn't feel elevated, safer, stronger, sharper, you will be discarded. Not hated, not blamed, just silently deleted from the story you thought you were writing together. You thought love was the reward for being good. But being good is not the currency of reality. Competence is. Command is. Self-possession is. And the man who cannot see that the man who clings to the fairy tale will not be gently awoken. He will be shattered because the truth does not whisper. It ambushes. It rips the mask off in front of the mirror and leaves you staring at a face you no longer recognize, one that was used, pitied, and never truly wanted. And now you have two choices: break or grow up. Break, and you spend years trying to reclaim something that never existed. Grow up, and you begin the brutal work of becoming something real. But growing up is not about becoming cruel. It's about becoming unavailable to fantasy. It's about discarding the myth that love is owed to you because you were loyal. That being a good man means you deserve admiration. It's the end of your emotional socialism, the childish idea that kindness should be reciprocated simply because it was offered. It won't be. Not always. Not in the way you dream. Because people do not give back what you give. They respond to who you are while you're giving it. And if who you are is a man who needs her more than he knows himself, she will not return your gift with affection. She will return it with retreat. And this is the part that either crushes you or carves you into something harder. Because now you see that no one is coming to validate your wounds. No one is coming to thank you for your heart. She isn't looking for your pain. She's looking for your presence. And if that presence crumbles the moment love doesn't go your way, you were never a man, you were a boy dressed up in hope. And boys do not get the woman. Boys get broken, over and over, until they realize that survival in this realm requires something far more brutal than kindness. It requires sovereignty, stillness, power that does not beg to be seen. The truth will strip you. It will leave you without the lies that once kept you warm. And in that raw cold, you will either shiver like a child, blaming the world for not being fair, or you will stand up, naked and awake, and begin again. Not with dreams, but with discipline. Not with emotion, but with edge. Because no one is coming to save you. And the only way forward is to stop pretending anyone ever was. You would think the lesson scars deep enough to be final. That after the first betrayal, the first emotional crucifixion, the first silent exit from the woman who once swore eternity, you'd wake up. That you'd rebuild yourself from steel, salt, and solitude. But most men don't. They don't evolve. They retreat not into strength, but into repetition. They chase the same illusion wearing a different dress. Same myth, new actress. They believe the failure was an exception, a glitch, that they simply picked the wrong woman. Not that their entire premise of love was a romantic hallucination. So they try again, and again, and again, each time thinking, she'll be different. But she's not, because she can't be, because she, like all others, is acting from a script older than her name, the same script you refuse to burn. You walk onto the stage, speaking the lines you memorized from your boyhood. I'll always be there for you. I'll protect you. I'll never hurt you. You offer her devotion like a pilgrim offering fruit to a goddess. But she is not a goddess, and you are not a pilgrim. You are a man or you're not. And when she sees that you are still reciting instead of embodying, still performing instead of commanding, her instincts ignite. She doesn't consciously plan to leave. She simply withdraws. One text slower, one compliment shorter, one evening colder, until you're left wondering what changed again. But the answer never changed. It was always there. You never stop playing the wrong role in the wrong story. You think romance is proof of meaning, but meaning in a man's life is forged in isolation, not in her gaze. You think she will complete you, but no woman wants to complete a man. She wants to join a man already complete, already moving, already grounded. The moment you orient your identity around her, you lose her, because no woman wants to be your purpose. That burden rots attraction. It turns the thrill of love into the weight of obligation. She doesn't want to be your heir. She wants to follow the man who breathes with or without her. But you keep returning to the altar of soft lies. You date the same archetype, the alluring storm with the wounded eyes. You fall in love with her chaos. You tell yourself you're saving her, but you're not. You're saving the version of yourself you want to believe in, the romantic hero, the redeemer, the one who is finally enough. But it's never about her. It's always been about your refusal to confront your own irrelevance. And so, again and again, you re-enter the dream hoping for a different ending, without changing the actor you. Until you learn to break the script, you will be trapped in it. You will confuse pain with passion, drama with depth, intensity with intimacy. And every time she leaves, you'll call it bad luck. But it was never luck. It was a pattern, and every repetition of that pattern is not failure. It is refusal. Refusal to see that the dream you're addicted to is not love. It's anesthesia, a distraction from the work you refuse to do, the pain you refuse to own, the man you refuse to become. And she, whoever she is, will always play her part. Not because she's deceptive, but because you invited her to. You wrote her role. You cast her in your fantasy. You ignored her humanity and projected your salvation. So she performed, and when the illusion collapsed, so did you. Not because she lied, but because you never stopped lying to yourself. You swore it was love. You wept for her, wrote poems in your head, carved invisible names into the walls of your soul. You told your friends she was different, that this time it was real. But now, in the cold afterlight of abandonment, if you are honest, you will see the rot. You didn't love her. You loved the feeling she gave you, the mirror she became, the reflection of yourself she briefly allowed you to believe in. You loved her attention because it confirmed your worth. You loved her body because it soothed your hunger. You loved her laughter because it made your silence bearable. But love, real love, you never saw her. You saw a role, a fantasy, a character in the play you refused to rewrite. She was never required to be real. You filled in the gaps with your own desperation. Her smile became your gospel, her approval, your validation. You didn't want a woman, you wanted a witness, someone to prove to the world and to yourself that you were lovable. You mistook chemistry for compatibility, attention for connection, and sex for intimacy. You didn't ask, who is she? What does she value? What demons chase her? You only asked, how does she make me feel? And when the performance ended, when her lines stopped matching your script, you cried betrayal. But it wasn't betrayal, it was improvisation. She started becoming herself. And that self wasn't what you fell in love with. You see, most men don't fall in love with women. They fall in love with escape. She was an escape from your loneliness, an escape from your unworthiness, an escape from the unbearable silence of being unseen. And for a while, she played the role perfectly, the muse, the lover, the salvation. But no human being can carry the weight of your unlived life. No woman can bear the responsibility of your identity. Eventually, her real self surfaced, and it shattered your illusion. Not because she changed, but because you finally looked at her without your delusion blinding you. You told yourself you loved her softness, but when she said no, when she withdrew, when she stopped catering to your emotional addiction, you called her cold. You said she used you, but what you truly mean is she stopped being your drug. You used her too as a container for your fantasies, as a balm for your inner void, as a mask for your weakness. And when she broke character, you couldn't handle it, because she was never allowed to be anything other than what you needed her to be. You never loved her. You loved the relief she brought, the illusion that maybe finally someone would fill the hole you refused to confront. And now that she's gone, you don't miss her. You miss the role she played. You miss the certainty, the emotional opium, the distraction. And that's why it hurts so much, not because you lost a soulmate, but because you lost the performance that kept you from facing yourself. This is where the illusion ends, when you stop blaming her, when you stop seeking new actresses, when you stop auditioning women for a role that no one can play, because the truth is brutal and it is final. No woman will ever complete you. No woman will ever be enough until you are, until you look in the mirror and stop needing her eyes to tell you who you are. And now you sit in the silence. No more stories, no more excuses, just the raw, unblinking truth. You were never betrayed. You were never abandoned. You were revealed. Revealed to be a man who clung to illusions because reality demanded too much. A man who confused worship with love, who offered devotion hoping to be chosen, not knowing that a man who begs to be chosen is already unworthy. The mask is off now. You see her clearly, and finally, you see yourself. No more myths, no more waiting for her to return, because what you miss was never real. What you loved never existed. And if you're honest, truly honest, the part of you that still hopes she'll come back is the same part of you that needs to die, because the only man who wins is the one who stops playing.